Today, I want to work on getting the front end on the car. We left off with installing this roof jig on both sides, and then we tacked in this B pillar, welded this C pillar, welded, partially welded. So the roof is attached to the car. Today I want to work on getting the transmission tunnel sorted out, and then also the firewall. But before I get the firewall welded onto the car, I want to put the core support on. But I'm gonna need a straight S13 hood to do that. I drove my girlfriend's 240 today, so I can use her hood. But I cannot install the hood on the car the way it is now because of the jig that I made. So the only way that the firewall is on here right now is by sitting on the bottom of the frame rails here, and then the firewall jig to the A-pillar bolts. Before I take this off, I want to tack weld a little area right here, just in this upper area, because I'll still be able to flex the whole firewall this way. And it'll pivot on this edge here, because I'll know this spot is in the correct location. And the same thing for this side. Clamp this down, tack weld. So I'm gonna get the trans tunnel situated, and then I'll get started on this. I'm just drilling in some of these self-tapper screws, because by doing that, we're eliminating these gaps here, as you can see. And this is not really ideal to weld when there's a fat gap like this. But the self-tappers help a lot, and it just makes it nice and flush, and we can put a nice quick weld on there. Oh man, that's already looking so much better. I've been trying to work my way up. That way it can match the contour of this curve, and it's looking super nice right now. Well, now that we got the floorboard from the half cut onto the chassis, I want to now attach the trans tunnel to the chassis. Because as you can see, this is pretty gapped as well. So we'll have to work our way around, starting from the flattest point. Oh, it's looking much better. This now sits super flush to the chassis, and that's ready to be welded on. I use a C-clamp and one of these clamps to pinch together the A-pillar and the firewall. So now we can tack weld a little spot right here. Alright, I'd say that looks pretty good. Let's do the other side now. Looks pretty good. So we got that piece on, that piece on. I'm gonna take this off. Hopefully the firewall doesn't move too much, but if it does move, at least I'll have the jig that I can reline up all these bolt holes. So now I need to take these jigs off of both sides and grab Fran's hood off of her 240, and then grab the front core support, and then we can start lining up all those pieces and get a good idea of where I need to trim it. It's always a good time taking off a hood by yourself. So with this new core support, I'm noticing a few things right away. The first thing is, I cut it so that it would still have the frame rails on the bottom. That way I can use that as a reference point where I attach it to mine. When I originally built my engine bay, I made my own lower radiator support, but this is how the stock one looks, which I don't plan on running, but I think I will use this lower mount just so I can line everything up in the correct position. I'm thinking about cutting this tab all the way down flush with the frame rail, which would also get rid of these mounts here for the bash bar. So I'll cut this one right here, and I'll be able to use these mounts for the bash bar. That'll help line that up. Also on the bottom, there's 2 bolts on each side, and these connect to the tension rod brackets, which bolt right here on the bottom. So that'll help line up the bottom as well. As for the top, I'm not going to be able to test mount this onto the car until I trim all that stuff away. So let's get grinding. I just remembered to have these headlight and bumper brackets that I can attach to this before I cut it, so that way it keeps it shaped better. Alright, now we got this thing trimmed up. We can put it on top of the car now and see how far back we need to trim this piece. I'd say just a little bit, at least. But I have a better idea of a way to measure that. I'll show you what I mean. I can line up the fender to this rear mounting hole. So I started the rear bolt mount right here on the fender. So if I put this end to end, we can see how far away the front bolt mount is. And if I bring this in, you can kind of tell about 1/2 inch. I'm gonna mark that really quick, take a quick measurement, and then trim it off right here. All right, let's try that out. Okay, we got one bolt barely started and another one barely started here. So that's lining up pretty good. Barely started one bolt here on the lower radiator support. Got the other fender on. Started one. I need to start the front one, and we are looking pretty good. So after that, I'm going to try and mount the hood just to make sure that everything is in the right spot and that this is in the right distance. So I'll need to find my hood latch. Hopefully it's in my trunk somewhere. And I'm also going to need to install the front tension rod on this side. So now we have both of the lower tension rod brackets on. But I ended up taking off the core support because I wanted to be able to prep all of the metal so I can weld it on there when it's in the correct spot. Now I need to find the hood latch. Honestly, not too bad of a fit, especially for first try. This is a little sank in right here, but I don't have any of the hood bumpers, which would help with that gap. Same thing with this side. But wow, that lines up pretty good. I kind of want to just put the bumper on just to see how it looks. This is how it looks with no bolts holding it on. Crazy. That's so cool. So at this point I have everything where I kind of want it to be. So what I'm going to do is turn on the welder, and I want to start tacking under the fender well and start connecting the firewall section to the core support section, since this is all looking pretty good in here. So I know now that the hood closes in the exact center location of the hood latch, and I like the way that the fenders line up, but I wanted to pop the hood first so I could double check and make sure that the core support was level. So at this point we have both of the upper corners tacked into place. And now I want to tack in the lower mount to the sides. Now this is really gapped right now, but I do plan on remaking this entire lower radiator support because it's not really a good jack point as it is. So I was planning on beefing up the metal there so I can use this as a jack point and not worry about it folding in. But for now it's going to help align the front end. All right, now I want to put on the bash bar so I can try and tack in some of these points to the frame rails. Sweet. Man, I love how this looks now. And if you're liking this video, don't forget to drop a like. It helps the channel more than you know, and I greatly appreciate it. So thank you guys a lot. And don't forget to subscribe if you want to see this car finish. I also dropped a new merch shirt, so don't forget to check it out. And the link will be in the description as always. Thanks for hanging out with me today. So we made it to Nate's. Now we need to get this engine out of here. And then we'll swap in the new trans into this thing. And hopefully this new trans is better than the one that's in there. You never know with these Hondas. This should be fun. Nice. That was a lot easier than I thought it would be.
Oh yeah, it really would.
Well, it looks like this Vortex cover worked great for protecting my fuel pump harness. Oh man, now it's monster trucking. I wonder how long it'll take us to put that transmission in here. No, it's not working. I guess we're actually gonna have to do some work. Well, we got some stuff taken apart so far. And I've noticed my axle is toast, but also the trans fluid doesn't look too dirty. Kind of shocking. Not too shiny either. And it's a boy. All manual transits are boys. That's the joke. I'd say those look the same. So while I have the trans out and everything all apart and disassembled, I wasn't planning to replace the clutch because I recently installed this clutch like probably 2 years ago now. But I did want to inspect the pilot bearing because there was a lot of transmission noise and pilot bearings can be a really big culprit of that. The pilot bearing is all the way inside here. And if you can hear that, it's kind of grinding. So the pilot bearing is toast. That thing is just crunching around in there. So I do want to replace that pilot bearing while the transmission's out. And the pilot bearing rides on this shaft right here. It's what helps center the whole input shaft into the clutch kit. So I got the best one I could find. And in my opinion, OEM.
Ladder down. Hey, here's Loctite.
Get in there.
Yeah.
What's up?
I think the song is on repeat.
I know it's like the 4th or 5th time.
I just noticed.
Dude, what? Dude, every time that I skip, it's the same song.
Are you serious?
Beautiful. Mint. Yeah, I just changed my trans.
Get it better.
Well, here it goes. Forgot to plug the battery in. So far, so good. So our test drive is actually going to be on the way to a meet. We have Nate in front of us, and then we have Tim behind us in the G35. Honestly, I can already tell how much better it is. I wonder if the pilot bearing was causing a lot of that noise at idle, because now it is so much quieter. Shifts so smooth. Ah, so happy. I love when stuff works out like that. If you like this video, don't forget to drop a like. Thanks again. We made it. It's not too many cars here, but that's all right. There is a transmission in my back seat though. Now this is sick. That was a Ford Fusion. Quality content. There's just something about these old Hondas that are just so timeless. Someday I hope to clean this thing up and make it look nicer. But for now, it's the daily.